What's up, everybody? Welcome back for episode 30 of the Blacksburg Buzz. I'm your host, Kyle Bean. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit more Hokies baseball. They've come across a bit of a tough stretch here, just starting off with that Wake Forest series where they got swept. Like we talked about in the last episode, they did bounce back against Liberty some, but not in a traditional way for the Hokies. It wasn't the bats that got everything going. It was really just being patient at the plate. Now, with traveling down to Georgia Tech this weekend, things didn't go as planned once again. The Hokies won the first game and lost the Saturday and Sunday matchup. So they're 1-2 on the weekend. And in their last 7 games, they've lost 5. Really on a skid here lately. So I've got some breakdowns of these Georgia Tech games. And we're just going to talk about what's happening with this team. They were such a powerhouse to start the year and, playing good opponents, but struggling here lately. So, first game against Georgia Tech from Friday, a win 11-1. The Bats were going crazy during this one, which we haven't seen in, a few games from Tech. They've been struggling on the offensive side. They've also been struggling on the mound, which happened in games 2 and 3. But this first game, offense was ridiculous. 20 hits as a team. He got the bats on the ball. 6 players with 2 or more hits. They had 3 players with 3 hits. Ben Watson, Carson DeMartini, and David McCann. And then 1 with 4 hits, the standout Chris Canizero. Really good stuff from all of those guys. Consistent, getting balls out into the field, dropping them into spots that weren't covered. Awesome outing for Tech. The pitching was good as well. The freshman Brent Renfro, he was efficient once again, threw for 6 innings, allowed 7 hits, 1 run, only walked 3 and struck out 5. So good day for him, especially coming back from Wake Forest last week where, just a struggle across all 3 games of the weekend. No one really found their stride in that one. They weren't hitting, they weren't pitching up to par, and just bouncing back like Renfro did in this game. You got to feel good about it. Now, those 7 hits, they were pretty spaced out, and Georgia Tech didn't really make anything of most of them. So, just 7 hits for 1 run. Good outing for Renfro on that Friday, and just coming back from Wake Forest against a pretty decent Georgia Tech team. The ACC is really good top to bottom. ACC and SEC really run college softball, and you know, really tough league to play in. And with Renfro as a freshman this year, you've got to hope Tech can keep him around for a couple more seasons because if this is how he's playing as a freshman, imagine how he could be playing as a junior or a senior if they can keep him in Blacksburg. Jacob Exum followed up and he pitched well as well. The bullpen has been struggling the last week with that Wake Forest game once again, but Exum did his thing. 3 innings, 0 hits, 0 runs, 0 walks, 3 strikeouts. So great pitching game from the two of them. All 9 innings, just 2 pitchers. I mean, this is a really solid performance from both of them, and you feel confident about it. I mean, you head into a weekend with an 11-1 win in game 1. You're feeling good about how things are going. Bouncing back from Wake Forest, getting back into the groove, back into the swing of things. And you're looking at, this is going to be a good rest of the season. Just had a little slip up against a really solid team. Now get back on track and get back to business. And then game 2 happened. This was not what Tech was expecting whatsoever. Saturday, A 19-0 loss ended after the top of the seventh inning due to the mercy. I mean, just a mess from both sides of the ball. I mean, didn't do anything to warrant any excitement whatsoever in this game. I mean, it was just awful, top to bottom, start to finish. Hokies threw 8 different pitchers on the mound. Only 3 of them lasted for a full inning. Really tough work for everyone. Wyatt Parliament started. He threw 1 inning. Grant Manning threw 1.2, and Preston Crowell threw 2 flat. So, not bad from Crowell, but just generally speaking, bullpen fell apart again. Not looking good here during this one. They walked 19 batters in total. That's a new program record for a game. And they did it in 7 innings. Well, I guess 6 for them in the field. I mean, guys, that's not okay. 19 walks, new program record in 6 innings defensively. Big struggles for the Hokies on the mound. Gave up 11 hits in those 19 runs. I mean, just a bad day all around from the pitching staff. Georgia Tech had 8 runs in the 3rd inning, and then they had 16 by the 5th. I mean, I can understand how the Bats would struggle there in the last inning or two with no momentum in this game, being down 10, 12, 16, 19 runs. I can see how you'd be feeling pretty defeated in the last, inning or two. But before that, I mean, come on, guys. We got to get a little something going and, try and make it a game. Try and show that we actually showed up to the field in this one. Just tough day for the Hokies. The Bats didn't really do anything, like I said. Not that, it would have really mattered late in the game being down so much, but you want to see an oomph there at least. You want to see a little bit of something just to be like, hey, let's show what we're made of. Even if we can't win this game, we can, show them we're going to be here tomorrow ready to go. But just couldn't get any momentum built in this game. Just 3 hits as a team. Carson DiMartini had 1, Chris Cannizzaro had 1, and Ethan Gibson had 1. So DiMartini and Cannizzaro, not a surprise at all. They're 2 of the top hitters on this group. Good stuff from Ethan Gibson, coming in as a freshman. He's played a little bit here and there, and he's played solid in the field. So obviously no complaints about Gibson whatsoever. Good job getting a hit and, doing whatever he could to help this team out. Hokies barely got anyone on base. They left 2 runners on, and that was it for the game. Got to give your props to Georgia Tech's pitcher Cam Jones, though. Threw for all 7 innings, gave up 3 hits, 0 runs, 0 walks, struck out 6. Really, really efficient day for Cam Jones on the mound. I mean, when you talk about it, you're telling me the Hokies only had, a couple base runners, 3 hits, they left 2 on? Like, that's rough. That's really rough. 3 base runners in total. Tough day on the offensive side. And then, Sunday's game, they started off with a good amount of momentum, and then they just crumbled. They had a fantastic start. They went up 7-0 in the 4th inning. And following that game, you feel really good about where you're at. I mean, 4th inning, you're leading by 7. You think, okay, we got it all out of our system from Saturday. It's a new day. We've showed up to the field. We're hitting the ball. Things are looking good. And then just fall apart. Give up 11 runs to lose that one by 4. I mean, you thought maybe they could turn it back on, but it once they let it slip, it was just that was it. They started off with an incredible 3-run RBI home run shot from DeMartini in the first inning. I mean, come on. What a way to start a game. DeMartini batting up there close to the top of the order, batting in 3 on the home run shot. I mean, you can't start a baseball game better than that. So good stuff from the Hokies there to get going. He scored Watson and Christian Martin. And in the second inning, Henry Cook had a solo shot. So, now all of a sudden you're up 4-0, feeling good. Moving into the fourth inning, Christian Martin had an RBI double and Micheletti had an RBI single. Now you're up 6-0. Fantastic feeling right there. And Ebel RBI on a 5-3 putout in the fourth. Hit over to the third baseman, scored a run, so can't complain there whatsoever. Just getting the bat on the ball, getting the ball in play, and trying to make something happen. Drove in a run. You're up 7-0 in this game. Stig was looking good on the mound until the fifth inning. So Griffin Stig, he'd allowed 5 hits. Georgia Tech couldn't string them together for anything meaningful, so they didn't have any runs at this point. And Stig had 5 strikeouts. So 5 Ks, 5 hits, 0 runs on the board for the Yellow Jackets. You're feeling good as a Hokies fan. Up 7. Pitching is looking good. And then Stig got hit a little bit there in the fifth inning. He let up 2 singles and, decided to go to the bullpen. Fair decision. Can't say much about that. Your guy's already pitched 4 full innings, gives up 2 singles, and you go to the bullpen, bring in your relievers. After that, that's when things just went downhill. The next 5 pitchers allowed 9 hits, 9 runs, walked 8 batters, and only threw for 6 strikeouts. So just the 5 guys after him had a lot of trouble. I mean, I can't remember who it was, but the last pitcher who stepped on the mound barely threw it all. So, can't really fault him. So it was really the 4 guys after Stig and before that last pitcher that were the reason for everything going south. It was Jeremy Neff to finish. He only threw for 1 batter, got him out. So, strikeout, 1 batter faced. Nothing wrong with that from Jeremy Neff. But those guys in the middle, Kurtner, Siverling, Little, and Stretch, they had a lot of trouble here getting just momentum in this one and keeping the Hokies in that position to win the game. That's what I talked about a lot on the last episode is, the pitching was a big worry ahead of this season just because of the lack of returning innings. And to start off, you were feeling pretty good about how the season was going, winning a lot of games, the bats going crazy, putting up a ton of runs on average in most games. So, pitching, it was just about keeping you in the game, keeping you in a position to win. Let the bats actually do the winning, but just make sure you're not getting blown out and in a position where you need to score 15 to win a game. As long as you stay within a couple runs or have a couple run lead, you're feeling pretty good with this Hokies team because, I mean, top to bottom of this order is ridiculously talented at the plate. And then you've got several guys you can sub in when someone's having a bad day. I mean, Christian Martin, DeMartini, Canizero, Ben Watson, Micheletti. These guys are filthy. David McCann is having a pretty good freshman season. He's asserted himself as a really good DH. Henry Cook has been great. Ebel's been great. And all of this without Garrett Michelle, who's one of the stars last year. And looking ahead into this season, you thought, hey, this guy was going to be, the man or one of 2 or 3 players to really lean on for this group. But with him going down for the season, I mean, Ebel stepped up really well at first base. He's been good in the field and he's been great at the plate. And Henry Cook has been great behind the plate as well. So fantastic work, generally speaking, from the Hokies to, adapt to that and just build a roster that can just compete at the highest level on the offensive side. And, on the pitching side, they were doing great until just a week ago. And then losing 5 out of the last 7. I mean, a disappointing way to, hit April. Just not looking good at a time when you really need to keep the momentum going. The ACC is too good to be giving up games if, you're hoping to host in the region, which I would say Tech is. I thought they were in a fantastic position to do it. But with these losses, they've dropped all the way down to 4th in the ACC on the coastal side. So, they were leading before the Wake Forest series. We were number 1 in the coastal. Now all of a sudden you're behind UNC, Virginia, and Duke. So, rough positioning there. And then on the other side of things, in the Atlantic, you've got Clemson, really good team. Florida State, really good team. NC State and Wake and Louisville. I mean, these are all fantastic groups. The ACC is talented top to bottom on both the Atlantic and coastal side. And while on the one hand, it doesn't make you feel as bad for losing games because they are good teams. There's 8 to 10 ACC teams in the top 25. I mean, these are good teams, and dropping a game here or there isn't a big deal when you're losing to someone ranked. But at the same time, with such a tight race, if you want to have that home field advantage come the playoffs, you got to win some of these games or at least come out with a win in the series. It's okay to drop a game, but losing 5 out of 7 just isn't going to cut it. Tech's got to get back into the swing of things and get control of this bullpen if they want to keep going and then turn the bats back on. They had the one big game against Georgia Tech, but other than that, third game, good start to it, but they didn't finish out. So got to keep the bats hot or else it's going to be a tough position come later in the year. Georgia Tech, they scored 6 in the 5th inning, 3 in the 6th inning, and 2 in the 8th inning. Just a disappointing way to end that series. With pitching being that concern, I'm worried about how this team is going to look down the stretch. We've seen what they can do, but will they keep that up? I mean, we're really going to have to see what happens if they don't really turn it back on in the next series. I'm very concerned about where we could be placing come the end of the season. So, Tech, they fell from 21-5 to, sorry, I think it was 20-5 to 22-10 now. So, that's a pretty significant skid for them, and moving from 1st to 4th in the coastal, that's a tough look. So we'll have to keep an eye on this team down the road. They got to get the bullpen situation figured out. Whatever they've been doing the last few games against these really top tier opponents isn't working. So gotta make a change there. I don't know what the answer to that is, but they need to make a change soon or we're gonna be in trouble. Looking ahead to some future episodes, still working on getting that Sons of Saturday crossover episode planned out. Haven't been able to find a time where all our schedules line up quite yet, but don't worry, it's definitely going to happen in the next week or so. Just trying to figure out where schedules will line up. Got a couple good guests that I'm also in the works on scheduling with. I'm planning on bringing one of TSL's writers, Jack Brizendine, on. He is a wrestling expert when it comes to Virginia Tech. And, you know, Tech won a natty this year. Big deal for them winning a wrestling natty. So, I'd love to talk with Jack about that and, just cover a little something different, a Hokie sport that not too many people are, getting in their feeds on social media as much. So I think that'd be a great thing to talk about, that wrestling natty, and bring on Jack on. He's one of my good buddies, and I think that would be a fantastic episode. So I'm going to be talking to him about that, and then just keeping up the baseball and softball content. Talk a little bit about the spring game that happened over the weekend. So a lot of fun stuff happening. You're going to want to stay tuned. Got some fun episodes coming up in the works. But until then, catch some sports, have a good week, and just be ready for some awesome Blacksburg Buzz content coming out real soon.